Right, my name's Jake Hicks. Thanks for popping by. Hope your first day has been good. Good to see some familiar faces here again. And what are we doing this afternoon? So this morning, if you missed it, we did the gelled editorial lighting, which we'll do again tomorrow. And then this afternoon, what we're doing here is going to be a couple of setups that I think people want to see more of, which is like creative setups that you can do in small spaces, really. And a lot of the times, I'll share a lot of lighting techniques and setups wherever it is on YouTube, whatever. And people are like, oh well, that looks cool, but I can't do that at home because I don't have the room, or I can't get into a studio and that sort of thing. So I kind of wanted to do a couple of setups here, which I really like, that create really beautiful, different looking, engaging looking portraits that you can do in a very small space. And when I say small spaces, I mean especially the first one that we're going to do here, you could practically do in a corridor. Like, you really don't need that much space at all. And on top of that, you can do it with a couple of modifiers that you likely already have. Okay, so I'm going to be working with our beautiful model today, Jocelyn, who's also my wife. So we'll try and make it work. But I promise you, any arguing is scripted, obviously. Sure, it'll be fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to build this one light at a time. And I'm not just doing that for you guys. I know it feels like, oh, Jake's helping us out by teaching us one light at a time, but it's really how I would do it in reality. Yeah, if I'm doing any setup, even a setup like this that I've done loads before, I'm going to be doing it one light at a time and getting one light dialed in exposure-wise first, and then moving on to the next one. Yeah, so what are we going to be doing here? So for this one, I'm going to actually use two large softboxes. I suppose this is a medium-sized softboxes, but I'm going to have our model between them. She's going to be stood in front of one. I'm going to set up another one here in a second. I wanted to, not have it all set up before you arrived, so you can at least watch me struggle a little bit. Yeah, so the basic setup is going to be two softboxes sandwiched between. And the real trick to this, the magic to this, is what we're going to do with Kelvin in our white balance in our cameras, and Kelvin or color adjustment gels that we may have already. So if you're not sure, color temperature gels or Kelvin gels, whatever you want to call them. So this is a color temperature blue, CTB, and in that softbox at the moment is a CTO. So if you just step forward a second, I'm just going to turn around. So CTO, which is color temperature orange. So at the moment, all the light going through this is going to be coming out very warm, yeah? And we're going to play with that in our camera in a minute, but so as you can, even just a quick test shot I took up there, you can see how rich and orange that is. Now, it's important to note that these are very, very different to regular colored gels. I'm sure we've all used normal color gels, and you go, well, I don't have those gels, Jake, but at home I've got a couple of blue and orange gels. I could probably make that work, right? No. Those color temperature gels, those Kelvin gels, are specifically designed to work along that Kelvin spectrum, okay? So when we're going to be balancing our camera to try and counteract some of those colors, we can only do that with color temperature gels. We can't just use an orange gel back there and try and counteract it in our camera, because they won't match up, okay? So let me just start by showing you what I mean. So let's just see, if you stand back there, yeah. So at the moment, that should be very orange. My camera is set to about 4,500 Kelvin. So we can see that it's very orange. If we dial it all the way down, so on my camera, I'm just adjusting the Kelvin in the camera, right? I'm not doing anything else, but you can't do this with normal gel. So at the moment, we've gone way too far. So we've gone from about 5,000 Kelvin all the way down to whatever it is, 2,500 Kelvin there. So we can bring that up. This is like 3,000. Let's see what this is. I just want to. So we're kind of getting it back, right? So let's go up to 3,500. Okay. So you can start to see already from where we were, that bright orange one, and I'm just kind of dialing it in. So at the moment, what I actually want to do is I actually want to use that orange, that beautiful orange glow, to our advantage, okay? So I'm actually going to bring my camera back up, and I'm going to use that orange glow, and then I'm going to try and counteract that color in a minute with a CTB. Okay, so let's bring that Kelvin back up. So let's bring it up to, let's just see, 4,500. I'm going to take it up even more. I just want to see what sort of color works well. Okay, so let's, for this shot, let's have you more profile. Yeah, oh, that's it, yeah. I think let's go this so they can see it, yeah, there you go. And just have you looking down over there a second. Turn even more profile. Yeah, let's have a look. So what I'm doing at the moment, I want to see that orange glow coming around Jocelyn here, so we can start to see it on the face there as well. So it's definitely got an orange glow. Let's see if we go any further. Let's take it all the way up. 5,500, let's see what we get. So I'm not worried about the exposure just yet. I'm going to dial that in a minute. I'm just looking at the color, and we can see, you know, the difference between these two is marginal, but let's go with this slightly orangey color. Let's dial it back a little bit, maybe to 5,000. Let's leave it there. Let's look at the exposure now then. Okay, so what I want is, I want to try and increase the power of this softbox so that we've gotten rid of this sort of creased and crinkled background, right? So let me just turn that down if I can. I might not be able to. Let's just turn it down. That's its lowest. Let's cheat. Let's take that down. So just come a tiny bit this way so I can get, that's it. So, yeah, so this is what we don't want, right? We want to just bring the power all the way down and then slowly bring it up until that background goes white. What happens is we kind of get the best of both worlds then. We have a white background, but then we still get the orange glow. And that's the sweet spot that we want, okay? So I'm just going to bring that up now. Keep increasing the power until we get rid of... Keep going. Just going to look on my laptop and see. So that's a HD TV, so it is very bright. I'm looking at the raw here, and I think we can afford to go a little bit brighter. So let's bring that up just a touch. I'm going to take it one whole stop. Let's see, maybe too bright, but let's just see. Okay. So we've got our white background now, but we also have that orange glow that we have coming across our subject. So now, obviously, the front of us is very dark. We need to think about the front, but at the moment, I'm just focusing on that background, and I just want to try and get some of that orange glow coming across her. Okay? So let's now bring in another light here. So we're going to do the same. Like I said, we're going to sandwich her between these two softboxes. And one thing that I wanted to show you before I sort of set all this up was these new softboxes, these flat pack ones that PiXAPRO have just brought out, are pretty crazy. I've never used them before, but like, how easy is that? I mean, I love giving the assistant the job of like, oh, would you mind assembling that brand new softbox for me that's never been touched and has got rock hard bars in it? So yeah, I mean, like super quick. So I just wanted to show you that. So let's get this set up on here. Okay, so we want to angle that back up. Now, we could get away with not having any color gel in there, and I'll just shoot it so you can see what it looks like. But I think I might want to add a CTB in there just to give it a little bit, just to cool it down a little bit. So let's turn that on. Oh, it's already on. Perfect. Okay, so that's B. Let's bring that in. And we want to try and bring this in as close as we can do. Without getting in the way of us. There's a couple of reasons for that, but let's turn this on. I'm just going to turn this all the way down. Okay, right, I'm just going to see if I can just shuffle this out of the way. Still think I want to bring that a bit higher for her. So I want that light to always be coming down on the subject. Okay. So now that I've done this, so rather than this being in the way of me, I'm going to have you facing that way. Okay. So I know that's in the front of the monitor for you, but let's see if we can. And let's just turn this one off, okay? I tend to like to do that as well, because I can see exactly what this is doing then. Okay, so that's fairly flat. And at the moment, you can see, I know that's not firing, but at the moment, it's like, it's kind of okay, but she's still a bit orangey for me. And I'm happy with the orange at the background. I don't want to change the white balance in here. So the only way to kind of give it a little bit of contrast in terms of color is to maybe put a CTB, a color temperature blue gel, in here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. There is certain gels and that sort of thing that you can just clip on over these, but for me, I'm just going to use just this. I mean, you could even tape it in there, but these struts are metal, so I'm just going to use 4 magnets on each of the metal struts. Okay, and it's just going to keep it in there for what we need. So I'm just going to faff around with this on camera for a second. And as long as you're covering the flash tube, you're good, okay? So as long as there's not any white light escaping out around there, you're absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm just going to put these 4 magnets on these 4 metal struts. That's all fine in there, okay? Now, if you're in a small studio, and maybe like a white wall behind you and that sort of thing, you know, you should really take the time to make sure that this is all buttoned up back here, because there's going to be light forced in here, and some of that's going to bounce back. And if it shoots out here, it's going to start bouncing around your studio. So you want to try and make sure that you've got control of the light at all times. So let's just put that in there. Let's just take another shot. Now remember, I'm not shooting on auto white balance. My camera is set to about 5,000 Kelvin, so it's not going to try and adjust this. If your camera was set to auto white balance, it would immediately just nullify the effect that you're doing. So let's see what we've got here. Okay, so we're already getting a lot of light from that there. Let me just, because of the ambient light, I'm just going to see if I can reduce the ambient light in the room here. The reason how I'm going to do that is I can't really change the shutter speed too much. I'm already at 125th. I can't go any higher than that, because otherwise I'll start ruining the shutter sync here with the flashes. So I'm just going to bring my aperture up, like to what, 5.6, which is 2 stops from where we were. That means I'm just going to turn this light up 2 stops. In an ideal world, I just turn that off, but I don't want to get told off. Okay, so immediately you can see that we've killed a lot more of the ambient light in the room. Okay, I've just increased the aperture on here, so from 2.8 to f4 to 5.6, 2 stops, and I've increased the power of this to 2 stops. Now I need to remember to increase that one to 2 stops in a minute as well, but for the time being, that'll do. Or just turn it off, yeah. But we have reduced tons of the ambient light in the room, okay? So she's bright blue now, okay? So now we need to counteract it with the orange. Let's turn that other one on. We may need to change it a little bit. Let's see. Let's go up 2 stops. Let's see. Okay, so now let's start doing some poses where we're facing, like I would say, yeah, that way, yeah, that way, yeah, that's it, yeah. Looking down works as well. That's fine, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to squeeze in there. Okay. So one of the things I like working like this for, that's terrible English, but one of the reasons I like this setup is because we have our softbox super close to our subject. We have this huge catch light, this big catch light, and we can see that reflection on Jocelyn's skin there. See those blue spots on her skin? That's because we're seeing the direct reflection of this, like a specular highlight of this softbox. And it's not too often that I would work with a softbox this close, but when doing so, you do get these huge specular highlights, which is gorgeous, especially if she's wearing something shiny or we've got oily skin or something like that. Can work really well. Let's take a couple more. Might come in even closer. As long as I'm not in the way of that softbox, it should be good. Let's have more of a profile looking down to your right, even more. Drop that hand out the way. So as soon as that hand comes up, that's blocking a lot of that orange light. So make sure that, so there you go. Yeah, beautiful. So we can see that on her face there as well. Okay. So this is an ideal opportunity to have something in front of the lens. So normally you'd maybe have Like you have a wine glass, old ashtray, whatever you want to do, like anything in front of the lens here, like crystals and that sort of thing. Because you have light coming into the lens, that's always an ideal opportunity to try and have something in the foreground, just to try and soften up, just to have a little bit of foreground interest. For some reason, I don't have anything today, but I mean, what I will do is I'll use a low contrast filter just to see if I can soften up some of those heavy shadows on the hair. And again, this only works when you have light coming into the lens. So I think people have seen me using stuff in front of the lens before, and they're like, oh, Jake, you know, I've used it and it's just not working. It only works when light is coming into the lens. Okay, it just looks weird if it's not. Okay, so let's just use this. So this is a low contrast filter. So this is just going to soften it up a huge amount. Okay, now whether you like it or not, it's certainly a useful tool to have. And I'm actually going to try this with my 105mm lens here, seeing as I've got it. I think for a headshot like this, head and shoulder shot, if you haven't used a 105mm lens, definitely try it out. You know, it feels really claustrophobic when you first use it. I mean, it was for me. I mean, I live and breathe this 24-70 zoom, and I can get really lazy about only using that. But zooming in like this, especially for a headshot, can be beautiful. Okay. So let's just take a shot without this first so we can see what's going on. Right, let's try that. Okay. Right, good. Let's bring this in. And more to the side as well. So one tip that you keep seeing me mentioning here is the fact to have the model off to the side like that. Ideally, I would have a fan in here just to get some movement in the hair as well, to get that lifted, and that will really start to open it up as well. But you can see we've got more detail in that hair now. Jocelyn's got very jet black hair, so I'm really conscious of that, especially when I'm shooting. It's like, can I be able to lift those shadows out in post? Now, at the moment, with this is not making the image out of focus in any way. Okay, this is just taking away some of that contrast. So don't think, oh, I wouldn't use this because it would, you know, soften my image. It's not doing that. It's reducing the contrast. So if I wanted, I could bring all that contrast back if I wanted. Okay, it's far easier to put contrast back into an image than it is to take it out. Okay, so we're doing this shot. Jocelyn, if you just look straight to me for a second, just like straight on, like you lose so much of the effect. It's just straight on. So if you're just keeping them to one side, so if you go off to look to one side, it's nice. Perfect. Okay. So, and I know those highlights look a bit hot up there, but they're fine on there, so that's good. So, I just wanted to show you guys that one because it's very quick and easy to do. You just need a couple of medium-sized softboxes, which most of you probably already have. Even if you just had one, you could swap this out for a big umbrella maybe, same thing. As long as you've got something that they're going to be stood in front of. If you are, Jay, I don't have any softboxes, I only have umbrellas, you could just put up like a white scrim there or something like that. It's going to be the same thing. So first off, set up your subject here, and then keep turning the power up until that softbox goes to white. We still have the orange glow. But one thing I see people do too often is making that too powerful. Okay, so it just blows it out and we start to lose that orange glow. You just want to keep turning that power up of that back softbox just enough until it just loses the actual material and just goes to white, and you still have the orange on the skin. And you bring this one in, and again, we're using a CTB color temperature blue and a CTO color temperature orange gel in there. Okay, and our camera is set to 5,000 Kelvin, okay, so it's somewhere in the middle. So just real quick, I'll just show you, seeing as we're here, before we move on to the next setup. So if we go down to 4,000 Kelvin, shoot the same thing, and then go the other way, 5,000 Kelvin and shoot the same thing. You've got a bit of creative control here. So we can either go, so this one is super warm. Yeah, we've still got a hint of blue in there. And this one is the other way, which is blue. So we've reduced some of that orange, but we've made that foreground a lot colder. And then there's obviously back in the middle there with the 5,000. Now we're shooting raw. We don't need to worry too much about it. We can always adjust it in Lightroom, Capture One afterwards. We're shooting raw, but it's just good to know what it's doing. Okay. So the next setup I wanted to show you is keeps this similar sort of setup. We're going to leave this softbox here again, focused on that sort of space. We're just going to upgrade it a little bit. So I'm going to do is swap out this gel for a bright pink one. And I'll take questions at the end, but we'll maybe save up the questions for this setup if there are any until the end. Right, so let's get that out of the way. And let's get a nice bright pink gel. This will do. So again, I'm just going to use magnets on there. Okay, so that's nice and pink. One thing to remember at this point is I need to put my white balance on my camera back to a normal, in air quotes, setting. So for me, it's about 4,500 Kelvin for me is what I normally shoot most of my color gel work at. You may think that's a bit cold for you, but for me, that's where I like it to be. Okay, so at the moment, that's going to be bright pink. We know the deal. But what I want to do is I want to sort of mix it up a little bit. And this time around, I'm actually going to put a black background behind Jocelyn here. And we were going to use this black flag, which is a beautiful black flag if you need one, but this is just a little bit too wide. So I did bring my own, and there's a couple of benefits to actually using this one that I made myself, and that is that it's made of black velvet, and black velvet reduces a huge amount, practically all the light from bouncing back off of it. Okay, so like I know Gavin was doing a setup this morning, and he was doing a similar sort of thing, but because he didn't have a light onto the subject, he didn't need to worry about it, so he was using black paper. So I'm going to be actually bringing in another light here in a minute, so I can't use black paper here, because black paper would just reflect the light. Okay? So, just if I get you to stand back there, and come in the middle of that, yeah, that's fine, yeah, okay. Right, so I need to turn this off, otherwise that's going to start firing. We can get this out of the way for now. I'll put the camera back to 4.5. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Oh. So again, we'll try to the side. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that side is fine. Yeah, that side is fine. Yeah, that's good. Okay. And a little bit this way. Yep. Right, so I'm going to put a little bit more power through that. We can start to see the effect, though. Okay, start to see the effect. We have that pink coming around the outside. So this is an old technique that I've stolen from still life. This is how you would photograph like wine bottles against a black background, right? You put a black background up, you put your wine bottle in front, the light comes around and you light the edge of that, dark wine bottle, which is very difficult to light normally. So all I've done is I've just scaled this up a little bit, and it's doing the same thing, just on a human size. Right, I'm just going to adjust this a little bit this way. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'll tweak that in a second, but now I want to bring in some lights on the foreground here. So I'm just going to bring in this beauty dish. I spoke about this morning, but this is about a 22-inch beauty dish. It's white on the inside, and I'm using it with a grid. Okay. Okay, so let's bring that in there. What's that, sorry? Or is there something? No, it should just be the diffusion cone. I think that's supposed to be there. Oh, good spot. That's where that was. Well done, good spot. Well, we can use that now that we found it. Nice. So this will just help just to take the edge off it. Like the grids are great, but they can sometimes, if you're not careful, leave honeycomb grids on the actual subject. So I'm always really wary of it. So having this little diffusion sock over it is going to alleviate any concerns there. Okay. Let's turn that on. So that's group C. Okay, here we go. Okay. Right. Let's try that again. Just come a tiny bit this way. Right, so where do we end up? Okay, so we're now bringing in that light onto the subject, and you can see that even with that light super close to that black velvet, it's not picking up any light, okay? So we can afford to actually bring this in quite close. I'm going to turn the power of that down. Whenever you bring a light in closer, you need to make sure you bring the power of that down. So let's do that now. Let's take it down an entire stop. Okay, so why am I bringing it in closer? I'm trying to bring it in closer because by bringing it in closer, you end up turning the power down. And by turning the power down like this and bringing it in very close, you end up with a fast drop-off of light. And with a fast drop-off of light, it means that it drops off to shadow far quicker. Okay? If I was to have it back here and just crank the power up, she's going to be lit evenly. If I bring it in super close, I can turn the power down, and I can have more of a shadowy bottom half. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to bring in a colored gel from underneath here, like a colored fill light. And you can only apply a gel to a shadow. Okay? You can only apply a gel to a shadow. So you can't just be turning on all the lights and just put some gels on some of them and not on others and hope it's going to turn out. It just turns into a mess. So by bringing in our lights super close like this, we're able to manage those shadows. Just going to maybe angle it down just a touch. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's turn that down even more. So come a tiny bit to your right. It needs more power now. Let's bring it back up. Okay, cool. Right, so what you should be able to see, okay, compared to where we were originally, where's the mouse, back here, look how bright the bottom half and the jacket is there compared to there. So now you see I've got all that shadow area that I can actually start to bring a colored gel into. If I hadn't have brought that light in close and turned it down, it just wouldn't have worked. The gel just wouldn't be anything for the gel to sit on, and that white light would have just burned it away. Okay, so let's bring in our last light here, and let's get that set up with, I suppose I'll use that head. Let's just remove these magnets. Okay. So I'm going to be using this on the floor with a little softbox. You could use an umbrella if you wanted. We don't have a little umbrella, but a small softbox is absolutely fine for what we need. Okay. This is our stand. Let's pop it on there. So I need to put a gel in here. So, I mean, I'm going to use a blue in here, but I mean, you could use anything, but just try and be a little bit sensible with the color gels that you use. Don't just, throw anything together. These pink and blue gels that I use, I think, work pretty well together. So that's why I'm choosing this. But again, if you're not using magnets to do this, it can be a bit of a pain if you're trying to shove gaffer tape in there, and a nightmare. I haven't yet come across a softbox that doesn't have metal struts, so it's pretty universal. Okay, so let's turn that on. Should be good. So now we need to bring this in super close. Yeah? We can probably afford to have it in there, maybe. I might have to bring it around there. My concern is that I don't want too much of this blue light falling on top of the face, the front of the face, where this light is going to be. So if I bring it, I might bring it around there in a second. Let's just see what this looks like. Okay. That's going to be super powerful. I'll turn it down in a second. Let's just get a gauge of what's going on. Oh, it's actually not too bad. Okay. So immediately you can see what I'm getting at with like separating that. You can even see it on the folds on the jacket there. You can see exactly how it's working. Like the blue is coming up on the bottom of those folds, and then on top we have the white line. So you can see it working pretty nicely there. And actually that exposure is pretty good for me. I'm not too worried about that exposure. Okay, come a tiny bit this way. Looking good. So again, we could try the low contrast, but I don't think it needs it. Nice. Yeah, I think it's too much. Just brings too much pink across the face, so we can leave that off. I like that pose again where you had just your chin up like that. It was nice. Yeah, beautiful. Perfect. The other thing as well with this, and I've worked with Jocelyn for a long, long time, so she knows not to do it. But like, if she's looking like down like this, which if you just look down, so she's now going to get a face full of blue gel, which you want to avoid. Okay, and that's not too bad, to be fair, because we have got that in a pretty nice spot. But if somebody's looking down like that and you have a fill light, a colored fill light, just always just try and have that chin up so you can keep the fill light and the key light very separate. Okay, so always having that chin up is always going to work. Perfect. Okay. So, I don't know what time we've got to get off stage, but I think we've probably got time for somebody to shoot something. Yeah? Does anyone want to come up and shoot something? Any questions? The blue one at the start, yeah. Say that again, sorry? So, like, why didn't I put the blue behind and the orange in front, sort of thing, maybe? So, the reason the blue is in that softbox there, you don't need that blue in the softbox. You could just use a white light if you wanted. But I'm really looking for that contrast between that warm color at the back and that very cold color in the front. And we get away with it with the Kelvin gels, because the Kelvin gels will have that beautiful highlight, but on the skin tone, you will have natural colored skin tone as well as the exposure separate. Exactly, yeah, that colder look. Yeah, it's a personal preference. I really wouldn't put like a red gel or a green gel on there, because the skin will just look terrible. But you can get away with it with a Kelvin gel like that. Yeah. So anybody want to shoot this? We've got probably just a couple of minutes. Somebody wants to shoot. Go for it, yeah, let's have you in here. What are the settings? It's a good question. So, 4,500 Kelvin at f5.6, ISO 100. So all good then, no more questions. Brilliant, right. Thanks very much everybody that stuck through it, appreciate it, no worries. And yeah, if I could have a round of applause for Jocelyn the model, that'd be fabulous. Thanks very much guys, enjoy the rest of the show.